Hello students, glad to be back with you again, and as usual today also I'll be taking class 10 SS. Now today we will be coming closer home, okay? So today we'll be discussing about chapter 3, that is Nationalism in India. I have written the chapter here, okay? Chapter 3, Nationalism in India. So today we will be discussing about how nationalism came into India, or how the Indians came to know about the importance of nationalism. Now to go into that, you need to know what is nationalism, okay? Now when we talk about nationalism in short, okay, to make it simple for you, we can say nationalism means feeling of unity, where everyone, in spite of belonging to different races, okay, speaking different languages, practicing different religion, all of them, they feel that they are one. So that is called as nationalism. So today in this chapter, we are going to discuss about how the Indians, they came to know about the importance of nationalism, and after getting into nationalism, what did they do? Because here we are talking about the Indians fighting or revolting against the Britishers. We all know that India have been under the control of the British for more than 100 years. So in this chapter, we are going to discuss about how or what are the things that the Indians did in order to get back their independence from the British, okay? Now, first here, when you go back to class 9, in class 9 you have discussed the former portion, so we won't go into that, and in class 10 we are going to start with Satyagraha, okay? Satyagraha, that means Satyagraha means fighting for truth or non-violence, and this was introduced by Gandhiji. So in this chapter we are going to start with the chapter that is starting the Indian history, that is starting with Gandhiji, okay? So first we have Satyagraha. So Satyagraha means non-violence or fighting for truth, fighting for the truth, because the reason why Gandhiji came up with this idea, okay? The reason why Gandhiji came up with this Satyagraha was because he knew that physically, okay, physically the Indians, they can never defeat the British, because during the time the Britishers, they were considered as the strongest country in the world. So Gandhiji knew that physically the Indians, they will not be able to fight against the British, and that is the reason why he started this Satyagraha movement. So Satyagraha means non-violence, and the other point is fighting for truth, because if you are fighting for the truth, whatever it is, okay, you are sure to win, because that is what Gandhiji believes in, okay? So that is to do with Satyagraha. Then apart from Satyagraha also, in your textbook we have 5 virtues that Gandhiji had introduced, okay? Gandhiji told the Indians to practice 5 virtues which are there in your textbook in page 33. The first one is we have spinning. Now when we say spinning, we are not talking about spinning around or anything. Here spinning means we are talking about Gandhiji advising the Indians to go for the manufacture of their own clothes, okay? To spin their own clothes. That is what it meant by spinning. Then the second point is he talked about removal of untouchability, okay? Removal of untouchability, because during the time we all know Indian society was divided into castes, okay? The Brahmins were there, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, the Sudras, and then at the last, the lowest caste is we have the untouchables. And these untouchables, they led a very miserable life, okay? Because many people, by the name itself, untouchable means something not so dirty that we cannot touch, okay? Not fit to be touched. And this group of people, the untouchables, they are the one who does all the manual works or all the dirty works. And so the upper classes, they believe that they are so dirty, okay? They are not fit to be touched. And these people, they were not even allowed to stay in the village. They have to stay outside the village. Then they cannot take water from the village well, okay? They cannot send their children to the village schools, nor the untouchables, they cannot even go to the temples or the restaurants and so on. So they led a miserable life. So here Gandhiji, he said that this should not happen, okay? And so he said the second virtue is, he said the Indian society, we should do away with the untouchables. Then in the third virtue, he talked about non-consumption of alcohol. He said the Indians, they should not go for drinking. Drinking, as I've said, it's to do with alcohol and not water, okay? So don't get confused there. Then he also talked about Hindu-Muslims unity. Okay, Gandhiji said that both the Hindus and the Muslims, they must come together. And only if they come together, then only they will be able to do something for the nation. That is, they will be able to do something for India. Okay. Then the fifth virtue is, he also talked about equality. Equality, where everyone is treated with equality. And the reason why he was stressing on this equality was, as you all know, the Indians, they were living under the control of the British. The Britishers, they have a very superiority complex, okay? They always look down on the Indians, and that is why Gandhiji put stress on this equality. So he gave this virtue and he asked the Indians, okay? He advised the Indians to practice all these virtues. So this is how Gandhiji came into the scene of the Indian politics, okay? He came up in the political scene. Now, talking about this Satyagraha, Gandhiji introduced this Satyagraha, and coming to India, okay? In India, he introduced Champaran Satyagraha. Champaran Satyagraha, this is very important because this is the first Satyagraha that Gandhiji introduced in India, okay? So the Champaran Satyagraha, it was introduced in 1917, okay? And this was to do against the indigo planters. Indigo, that is a plant which we use for dyeing clothes, okay? Coloring the clothes. So what happened was, the Britishers, they had advised the Indians to go in for indigo planters, or sorry, indigo plantation, because there the Britishers, they will be getting lots of profit. So what happened was, many of the Indians, they went in for indigo planters, but the point was they were losing out the profit. They were not getting much in return. So what Gandhiji did was, okay, he told the planters, that is all those Indians who were involved in this plantation, Gandhiji told them not to cooperate with the Britishers, okay, not to cooperate with the Britishers, so that the Britishers will also be able to understand their grievances. And because of this incident, the Agrarian Act was passed, which benefited the Indians, okay. Then the second Satyagraha was, we call it as the Kheda Satyagraha. Now this Kheda Satyagraha, this is to do with, again, agriculture. Now what happened was, the Indian farmers, okay, the Indian farmers, they were facing problem because they were not able to get enough harvest. Now there is a law, okay, an act which was introduced already, and that is, if the farmers are unable to get enough harvest, then they are supposed to get some subsidy. That is, there is supposed to be some cut down in the taxes, okay, but the British government, they were not willing to do that. So again here also, Gandhiji, he told the farmers at Kheda, okay, in the Kheda Satyagraha, he told the farmers not to cooperate with the British. And through this again, the Britishers also, they decided to give in to the demands of the Indian farmers, okay. Now, coming to the next point, in your textbook, it is written as the Khilafat movement and the non-cooperation movement. Now, when we talk about this Khilafat movement, okay, Khilafat. Now, what happened here was, okay, this movement, it was introduced by the Muslims, okay. Now, when the war had ended, when the First World War ended, the country of Turkey, it went under the control of the British, okay. After the First World War ended, the country of Turkey, it went under the control of the British. And here, what the Britishers did was, the Britishers, they gave an announcement, and that is, they say that from now on, the leader, okay, the political leader of the Muslim, he will not be allowed to use the title Caliph, okay. That is, the Britishers, they say that from now on, the Muslims' political leader, he will not be allowed to use the title Caliph. And this really hurt the sentiments of the Muslims, because the Muslims, they have been using this title for centuries. So they started revolting against the Britishers in Turkey. That is, in Turkey, the Turkish, they started revolting against the British. Now what happened here was, talking about this Khilafat movement, this is to do with India. Now all those Indian Muslims, okay, all those Indian Muslims who were staying in India, they started this Khilafat movement. Okay, the reason why they started this movement was to show those Muslims who were in Turkey that the Indian Muslims were also angry against the Britishers. So that was the reason why this Khilafat movement was started by the Indian Muslims in India. Now, when this movement was introduced, Gandhiji, even though he was not a Muslim, he also took part in the movement, because Gandhiji knew that this was an opportunity, okay? It was a good opportunity for the Hindus and the Muslims to come together. And that is why he also took part in the Khilafat movement, which is a Muslim movement, okay? And because of this, later part, okay, when Gandhiji started all these non-cooperation, civil disobedience, all those movements, when Gandhiji introduced, the Muslims also, they took part, because Gandhiji had taken part in the Muslims movement, okay? So this is the reason why it is important. Then after this Khilafat, Gandhiji, in order to make sure that the Indians, they fight against the Britishers through non-violence, what he did was, Gandhiji introduced the non-cooperation movement, okay? Non-cooperation movement means where the Indians, they decided not to cooperate with the not to cooperate with the British. They decided not to pay tax, okay? All those students who were studying in the government schools, that is, government means British school, they left their school, okay? The lawyers also, they left their practices. So all these were done, even the title. When we talk about title, during those days, the British Queen, okay? The British Queen, she has given lots of title to the Indian leaders. Many of them were given the title Sir. Out here, when we talk about Sir, we can call anyone as Sir. But for the Britishers, that is a title, okay? It is a title. So the Queen, she has given lots of title to the Indian leaders. And during this non-cooperation movement, many of the Indian leaders, they returned back their title, okay? Almost all of them, they returned back their title. Even to do with Gandhiji. Nowadays, we don't call Gandhiji as Sir Gandhiji, because he returned back his title during this non-cooperation movement. But when we talk about this Muslim League, we know the leader who is called as Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Now, in all the textbook, he is referred as Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. And the reason why the Sir is there is because that was a title which was given to him by the Queen, and he did not return it back, okay? So that is why now also, till now also, he is called as Sir. So during the non-cooperation movement, all these events took place. But however, okay, because of one incident, now this non-cooperation movement, it had started everywhere. All the Indians now, they were taking part in the movement. They were refusing to pay tax, they did not go to schools, all those things, okay? But because of one reason, we call it as Chowri Chowra incident, okay? Chowri Chowra incident. Now, because of this incident, Gandhiji, he decided to call off the non-cooperation movement. Now, Chowri Chowra, this is a name, okay? It's a name of a village in UP. And here what happened was, the non-cooperation movement was going on. Everywhere the Indians, they were agitating against the Britishers. And in this place, that is in this village, Chowri Chowra, what the Indians did was an angry mob, okay? They went, they surrounded the police station and they set fire to the police station. So in this incident, many policemen were burned to death, okay, because they could not come out, because the police station, it was surrounded by the angry mob. So the policemen, they knew that if they come out, they are going to be killed. So what they did was they just stayed there in the police station, and because of that, many of the many of the policemen were burned to death. And because of this incident, Gandhiji, he decided to call up the non-cooperation movement, because Satyagraha means non-violence, and that is something which Gandhiji really believes in. And here in the Chauri Chaura incident, people are being killed. And so because of that, Gandhiji, he decided to call off the non-cooperation movement. There were many leaders, Indian leaders, okay, who were not in favor of that. But Gandhiji, he decided to call off the non-cooperation movement because of this incident, okay. So that is to do with non-cooperation movement. Now, coming to the next topic, we have a topic which is called as Swaraj, okay. Now, when we talk about Swaraj, Swaraj, it means different things to different people. For the Congress, Swaraj means independence, okay, getting sovereignty from the Britishers. But here in your textbook, we are going to discuss about the movement in the countryside for Swaraj. Movement in the countryside means mainly it is to do with the tribal people, okay. So for the tribal people, for them, Swaraj, it means different things, okay. So here, as I've said in your textbook, we are going to discuss about two tribal people. One is called as the, to do with the Awadh, and the second one is to do with Andhra Pradesh, okay. So first, let's go through this Awadh, that is peasant movement in Awadh. In Awadh, that is the name of a place, okay. So here, what did the Indians do, or what did the peasants? Peasants means we are talking about the farmers, okay. What did the farmers do in order to achieve Swaraj, or for them, what does Swaraj means? So here, regarding the peasant movement in Awadh, okay, this movement, it was led by Baba Ram Chandra, okay, who was a sannyasi. And here, what he did was, this movement, okay, for Awadh, in the place of Awadh, the reason why this movement came up was, this was to do with against the atrocities of the landlords and the talukdars. Okay, the landlords and the talukdars. That means, in short, we can say against the rich people. Okay, the landlords, the zamindars, and all who are much richer. They enjoy a luxurious life in the village itself. So this movement broke out in Awadh against these people, against the zamindars or the talukdars and the landlords. Okay, then the point here was, the reason why it started was, these people, that is the landlords and the talukdars, they were imposing lots of taxes, okay. Lots of tax were being imposed on the common people, that is on the farmers, and they were finding it very difficult to survive after paying all those taxes. So that is also one reason why they decided to go for that. Then another thing was, the farmers, that is the peasants, they had no rights to their land. That means we call it as landless farmers, okay. Majority of them were landless. They are farmers who doesn't own land, because all the land belongs to the landlords, okay. So that is also one reason. Then the talukdars, they often used to force, okay. They often used to force the peasants to do begging or beggar. Beggar means here doing some work without getting any money in return. That is called beggar, okay. So all these were being imposed on the peasants in the state of Awadh. And so this is the reason why the people, they wanted to go for a movement. They wanted to fight against the talukdars and the zamindars. And in this, what Gandhiji suggested was, he suggested that they should stop providing work to the, or doing works for the landlords and the talukdars. And here work means, what happened was, the washermen, okay, the dhobis, they stop washing the clothes of the landlords, okay. Then the barbers, they also stop going to cut the hairs of the landlords and the talukdars and all. And all these was just to show the landlords and the talukdars that the farmers were not happy with them, that the farmers were not satisfied with the way that they are imposing tax and all those things on them. Okay, so that is to do with this Swaraj. So for this people, Swaraj means getting freedom. Okay, getting freedom from the landlords, where they can get away from the landlords. So for the people of Awadh, Swaraj means getting freedom from the landlords. Okay, then coming to the second point, in the second movement we have the tribal movement in Andhra Pradesh. Okay, and here this movement, it was led by Alluri Sitaram Raju, and this man, okay, how he became the leader of this movement was, what he did was, in the textbook it has written, okay, he claimed he had special powers, and that is, he said that he could survive bullet shots. Now when we talk about it, when we think about it, that is something impossible, isn't it? But during those days, the people were illiterate, okay, they were illiterate, they were very superstitious, and that is why they believe him when he said that he could survive a bullet shot. Okay, so through all this, he made correct astrological predictions, and he could also heal people. So this is how he was able to convince the peasants, and he became their leader. Now here, the reason, the causes why this movement broke out is, okay, the first one is, we have, because of the British colonialism, okay, the tribal people, now they have come under the control of the colonialism, or under the control of the British. Then the second point was, okay, because of the British, what happened was, now in the village, okay, in the village, the zamindars, the talukdars and all, they have become so important. They became so important, plus they became very arrogant, okay, where they believe that they are the head of the village and so on, and where they used to impose all sorts of taxes, okay. Then another cause is, the Britishers, they were spreading Christianity, okay, the Britishers, they were spreading Christianity, which was something which the tribal people did not agree to. So that is also one cause. Then another cause is, mainly it is to do with the forest. Now during those days, what happened was, when we talk about the tribal people, okay, now tribal people, what they used to do was, their main occupation is agriculture, and agriculture also, we call it as shifting agriculture, okay. Shifting agriculture means, for 1 year they will cultivate one portion, the next year again they will shift to another portion, and this is because of the fertility of the land. So that practice is called as shifting cultivation. So the tribal people, they used to practice this, okay. And then another point is, they were having the freedom, they have the freedom to enter their forest, okay. They have a big forest there, and they can go and collect firewoods, or foods for their animals, cattle and so on, and all these they used to do it freely. But now, because of the coming of the British, what the Britishers have done is, now the Britishers, they say that they will not be allowed, okay, the tribal people will not be allowed to enter the forest in order to cut down the tree for firewood, or in order to collect food for their cattle and so on. So it was because of this that this people, that is the tribal people, they decided to start revolting against the British, because they wanted to show the Britishers that they are angry with them, or in one way they are fed up with the way, okay. So here, all these were done just to show their grievances against the British rule, against colonialism. So that is to do with the tribal movement, okay. Then, as I've said, again another point is, we have the Swaraj and the plantation. Swaraj and the plantation. Now those days, the Britishers, they had introduced lots of plantation, and all the Indians, majority of them, they used to go and work there, okay, but they were working under a very miserable condition. And on top of that, the British government, they had even introduced an act, okay, which is called as the Inland Immigration Act, and this was introduced in 1859, okay. Now this act, it says that all those plantation workers, those who are working in the plantation, they will not be allowed to move out from the plantation without a permit, or without asking permission. But the problem here was, even if the Indians, okay, even if the plantation workers, they asked for permission, it was rarely given to them. So this was the condition of the Indian plantation workers, okay. And so for this kind of people, that is the workers, that is the peasants and all, for them Swaraj means different things. So for some of them it means getting freedom from the landlords. For some of them it will mean having the freedom to go and do whatever they like in the forest. Or for other people like the plantation workers, for them they believe that they can just, if they believe that if they follow Gandhiji, then Gandhiji will give them land, that is field. So all these shows that Swaraj means different things to different people, okay. Now we will come to again another movement that Gandhiji had introduced, which is called as the civil disobedient movement, okay. So in the civil disobedient movement also, we have already discussed that in class 9, so I won't go into detail, okay. Now we will go to this Simon Commission, okay. Now this Simon Commission, this is a commission which was sent to India by the Queen of England, okay. So in 1927, this commission, it was sent by the Queen of England to India. Now the reason why this commission was sent was, this commission, they came to India in order to discuss how to transfer the power back to the Indians, okay. How to transfer the power back to the Indians. That means how to give back India her independence. So that was the reason why this commission was sent to India. And this commission, again, it came to be called as the Simon Commission because the chairman, okay, the chairman of the commission, he was called as Sir Simon, okay. So Sir John Simon. So because of the chairman's name, this commission came to be called as the Simon Commission. So this Simon Commission, they came to India, okay, in order to discuss about how to transfer back the power to the Indians. They had lots of talks, okay, with different people, and even in Naga history. In Naga history also, this Simon Commission is considered very important because this Simon Commission, when they came, all the Indians, okay, the Indians, they started boycotting it, and the reason was, in that commission, there was no Indian member. All the members of the commissions were white people. There was not even a single Indian member included in the commission. So that was one reason why the Indians, they decided to boycott it, okay. Then as I've said, for the Indian history also, or for India, Nagas also, it is important because this Simon Commission, they even came to Kohima, okay. They came to Kohima in 1929, and when they came to Kohima, the NNC, they gave a written petition to this Simon Commission. And this was the first time, okay, it was the first time that the Nagas had given a petition to a foreigner. So that is also the reason why it is regarded very important. All these we have discussed in class 9 in your Nagaland book, so I hope you still remember, okay. So this commission, they came to India, they had lots of meetings with the Indians, and they went back to England. Now what happened here was the Congress, okay. Now the Congress, they decided to go for another session. That is, they decided to go for another meeting, and that was to do with the, we call it as the Lahore session, okay. And in this Lahore session, the Congress, they had a meeting there on in 1929, okay. And in this meeting, that is in this Congress session, all the Congress, they decided to come to a conclusion, and that is, one point is, all of them, okay, all of them, they decided that they will celebrate Independence Day on 26th January, okay. They will observe Independence Day on 26th January, or 26th January will be observed as Independence Day. I'm sure you feel that there is some mistake there, isn't it? Because when we talk about Independence Day, now we know that we celebrate Independence Day on 15 August. But this was something, okay, this was before we got our independence, okay. It was in 1929, that is before we got our independence. So 26th January there, they decided to observe as Independence Day. After we got our independence, we celebrate Independence Day on 15 August, and 26 January is celebrated as Republic Day, isn't it? So that is to do with that, okay? But here, as I've said, it was an incident which happened before we got our independence. It was in 1929. So in 1929, the Congress, they had a meeting at Lahore, and here they decided that they will observe 26 January as Independence Day, plus, okay, they also decided that now whatever it is, okay, whatever it is, they will go just for complete independence. They will ask from the British only independence and nothing more. So that was what they decided in this Congress session at Lahore, okay. So I hope you have understood that far. Okay, so that is to do with the Congress session at Lahore. Then next we have civil disobedience movement. But regarding the civil disobedience movement, we will try to continue next class, okay, because it's lengthy. So for now, I'll just try to sum it up, okay, all those points that we have discussed. So nationalism, we have discussed about that. Nationalism means feeling of unity. Then we have also discussed about Gandhiji. Gandhiji was the one who introduced Satyagraha. Satyagraha means non-violence and fighting for truth. Then the reason why Gandhiji introduced Satyagraha was because he knew that physically the Indians, they will never be able to defeat the Britishers. So that is the reason why he introduced Satyagraha, okay. Then we have also discussed about the Khilafat movement. This was a Muslims movement, but Gandhiji also took part because he knew that it was a good opportunity to make sure that the Hindus and the Muslims, they come together. Then we have also discussed about Gandhiji introducing the non-cooperation movement, okay, where he asked the Indians not to cooperate with the Britishers so that the Britishers will know that the Indians are angry with them, okay. Then we have also discussed about Gandhiji introducing the civil disobedience movement, and because of this Chauri Chaura incident, the civil disobedience movement was again, the non-cooperation movement was again called off. Chauri Chaura incident, that is to do with an event where policemen were killed, okay, many policemen were killed, and so because of that, Gandhiji, he decided to call off the non-cooperation movement. Then we have discussed about the Simon Commission, okay. Simon Commission, that was a commission which was sent to India by the Queen in 1927 to discuss with the Indians how to transfer back the power to the Indians. Then after this, we have discussed about this Congress session at Lahore, where the Congress, they decided that now they will ask only for complete independence, plus they decided that now they will observe 26 January as Independence Day. So I hope that I was able to clarify some of your doubts. As always, please go to your textbook, read your textbook, underline the points that you find it difficult, and once your school resumes, you can clarify your doubts from your teacher. So stay safe, thank you, and be good.